industry initiatives. He's been the Ontario member to the Canadian Agri-Food Policy Institute and is a member of the board of the Wine Rank Research and Innovation Centre. In 2009, he was the recipient of the Golden Pencil, which is the highest honor awarded by the retail food industry in Canada. He speaks on retail food industry to public and private companies, to trade associations, universities, and processing groups. John and Michelle live in Unionville, Ontario, where they've raised 3 tremendous young people. John Simpson.
Well, good afternoon. I flew here last night, so I didn't see the game. I just want you to know, I've lived in Toronto for about 18 years. Prior to that, I was in Alberta. And I was in Alberta with Seats and Center Ice all the years that the Oilers won the Cup. And it was wonderful. Terrific experience. And I know when Vancouver wins, it's going to just be great. You'll just really enjoy it. But I want to tell you, Let me over this one. Don't worry about it. I got to tell you though, why it's better to be a Leaf fan. And I've learned this. It took a while. I'm not a Leaf fan. Why it's better? It's because when they win a game, it feels like the Stanley Cup. I want to tell you, I'm really pleased that I came here in time to see the awards this morning. And I was saying to the people at my table, several of whom won the awards, how impressive it was and how intimidating it was to come and have to speak to people who are so accomplished. It really is an amazing statement that you can come here and learn so much in a short time about some great innovation in the industry. You must be so proud. And I want to say one other thing about that. These awards were given today and received with everybody in the room in full accord. We didn't appear to be any jealousy, any pushback, or anything like that. It was full and proper decorum. It was appreciation. And that's remarkable. You should be very proud of yourselves. People, I'm really pleased you invited me here, if only to see that. And I'll repeat that in other presentations that I make in the future. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in the retail food industry. Some of you have seen some of this presentation before, but it is relatively new, and certainly the format is new. The format is a new format called Prezi. If I screw up, it's entirely my fault, and the person who developed it back in my office, I'll let them know. So let me just let's talk about who's selling food, and this is at retail. Now traditionally, who's selling food are supermarkets, and these are some of the supermarkets that exist in the Vancouver area, and you've got the Safeways of the world, and the Save-On Foods, and the IJ Marketplace, and the Strong Markets, and those are places traditionally that we've all gone to and said, you know, that's our supermarket. And then in the last few years, we've had these new interlopers come into the equation, and that's the Walmarts, and the Real Canadian Superstore, and even the Costco's of the world. And they're what we call soft discount. They give an impression of a price play, as opposed to definitely a more balanced economic play that a traditional supermarket would give. And this has become more prevalent as the recession wore on. And more lately, what you've seen in this market is some of what we call hard discount. Hard discount is something like the no frills you see down below, which is what Loblaws can bring their extra food stores to, or above the Price Smart stores that Overweight has put some of their stores into. Now these stores are pure, absolute low price. There's nothing else to them. There's no service, there's nothing. It's dead price, and there's no other expectation. If you as a processor are selling to them, they're going to grind you right to the last cent before they put your product in the store, and then they're going to grind their cost down to the last cent before they sell to a consumer. That's a pure price play. It's hard. And it was, until 2 years ago, the fastest growing format in the Ontario market. And then we have something that's really interesting, and where you people in British Columbia have a great advantage. You have some fantastic specialty operations, people who understand the consumer better than some people do elsewhere in the country. You've got the people at Overweight who develop urban fare. I don't know any other major company in this country, or in fact in North America, that sit back of that size and develop a specialty store with that type of attention to consumer detail in those markets like these stores have been developed. Now they're not all performing as well as they should. Part of that's the recessionary environment. But they are truly unique, and it's something that's unique to Vancouver. Very interesting. Then you have the Choices markets, and you have the market on Millstream in Victoria, and who else have I got up here? You've got these interlopers coming from the United States called Whole Foods, where you can buy an apple for $5 and put it in. And then lately, you run into this. And this is where you sit back and say, gee, how does this all work? You go into Canadian Tire, and as you're checking out, you can get craft dinner, or some Coke, or whatever. How does that work? And then you've got sellers kind of moving up in the game a little bit. They've always been around, but frankly, since they sold to Target, they picked up their game a little bit. And then even the 7-Elevens, if you go in the 7-Elevens or the convenience stores, they're selling more and more food for you that's not convenient, that's for you to take home. It's a whole different market. Drugstores. Anybody been to Shoppers lately? You see the amount of food that Shoppers is selling? Isn't that incredible? Do you know last year the only growth we had in the country, the retail food industry, was 2 formats. You know what they were? It was Walmart and Shoppers Drug Mart. Everybody else was flat. Walmart and Shoppers Drug Mart. Food, health. That's where they thought they had a bit of an edge. And then finally, we have this whole phenomenon called ethnic retail. And for a while, when people came to this country from offshore, as we developed and improved our immigration policies and welcomed a wealth of people from all over the world, we assumed they would buy from us in our stores. They don't want to buy from us in our stores. They want their own stuff. And you know what? These people started to build some pretty good stores. Some really good stores. That's where the T&Ts came along. In fact, they were bought up by Loblaws a couple of years ago because Loblaws all of a sudden realized, hey, people aren't going to shop our stores when they can get what they want at T&T. So you've seen this huge development of ethnic food stores across the country. And there's another aspect of that. As these cultures come in, and as we become used to their food, we shop in these stores too. Everybody shops in ethnic stores. Pretty interesting. So I look at all of these stores. And this isn't all of them that are selling food in this province. All these stores. You must sit back as Proccessors and say, how does that work? Population isn't growing a whole lot. All of these people are selling food. How can they all be making money? How can they all be growing? What's their point of difference? And I will tell you that each one of those stores has been developed by some very, very capable people that have developed a point of differentiation against a strategy that's key to a certain consumer. I want to go through a little bit of that today. Let's talk about who's buying food first. Well, let's talk about young families. This we call generation Gen Y, and you got the Echo, you can call them whatever you want. Here's what they are. They're smart. They're really smart. Baby boom's kids. Baby boom didn't have time for them. They threw money at them. Grandparents threw money at them. It's well rotten. You've got all the best things in life. They learned a certain amount of deference. They're well educated. And they know where to go to get information. These people are starting to have families. In fact, my daughter had her first grandchild last week. Pretty exciting. We're starting to have families. And these mothers aren't like my mother, who knew that volume was all I needed. Look at my size. These mothers understand the relationship between food and health. This is a different group. And where they're going to change, where they're going to compromise, that young consumer is going to compromise only on economic values between food and health. Then we have the baby boom, which many of us are part of. We're sitting in the room. I'm certainly part of it. And I've gone through the baby boom characteristics, and some of you have heard me talk about it before, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it today, except to say they are the drivers of the economy still. They have a lot of money. They have a ton of money. And they spend a ton of money. They do not intend to take it with them, nor do they intend to leave it for their kids. What have they done over their lifetime? When they got in trouble, they bought their way out of something. In fact, when they've enjoyed something for a period of time and then walked away from it, they've ended up bankrupting companies. And they brought companies back. A very good example of that is the whole hush puppy era. I remember, some of you may remember hush puppies being a big thing in the 70s. Hush Puppies was about to go bankrupt in 1995. And somebody down, some baby boomer down in Greenwich Village in New York saw somebody wearing Hush Puppies, thought that'd be cool. All of a sudden, Hush Puppies were the rage again. Away they went, made the tipping point. It's a great expose on that particular story. What's the baby boom decided they've got to buy themselves out or not? Time and health. Backs start to get sore. The bells aren't working so good anymore. Not playing golf because the arthritis is getting in the way. Look at all the tennis courts that are around the world at various resorts. We all go to them. I see nobody playing tennis. Those are built in the baby boom. When the baby boom was traveling and they played 80s and the 90s. They don't play tennis anymore. I can't get around the court. What are they interested in spending their money on? Health, food, and health. That's the baby boom's going. There's one other aspect of the baby boom you got to know. Very important. And we're seeing it in the stores today. You're seeing baby boomers come into the stores every day. They don't have to shop every day. That's not what they did. But they're shopping every day. You know what we think it is? They're lonely. You become a sense of community. The grocery stores come back as a sense of community because it's the only store you can go into every day and nobody wonders why you're there. Every other day you sit there and say, every other store you say, well, you can't buy another TV today. But a store you can buy your food every day. It's very interesting. And we have this whole change of our culture becoming more mosaic. You know, we welcomed 200 to 250,000 immigrants to this country since 1990 when we realized that if we didn't do something pretty quick, we were going to be half the population we were at that time by the year 2050. So we welcome these people. They primarily come from Asia, and they've enriched our culture like you wouldn't believe. And they primarily settled in urban areas, Vancouver, Toronto, and Calgary. Toronto currently is 55% of the people who live in Toronto are now other colors, and we're not born in Canada. That's how fast the mosaic has changed in this country. And we can look forward to continued change and a continued mosaic culture, which I believe has enriched us dramatically. But in spite of all of that, we have, folks, a stagnant population. So we look forward to a very stagnant population because we're not really replicating ourselves. We're kind of sitting there at 34 million people, kind of up and down a little bit. Very stagnant population. I'd like to sell food into all of that. Young people, baby boomers, ethnic. Wow, stagnant population. Where do you go from there? Well, add this. 80% of Canadians now live in urban areas. I mean, they're not building all those caves downtown Vancouver for because they want to spend their time on it. That's where people want to live. Now think about trying to get food down there. Think about it as a supermarket company trying to get food downtown Vancouver. All those people living in all those condominiums or downtown Toronto. It's a daunting task. And then look at the fact that the household size is shrinking. How many children can you have? How many children can you afford to have? And that's the reality in Canada. Well, some of you have seen this diagram before. This, if you learn nothing else today, when I say this is maybe the most important thing I tell you. This resembles the economic capability of our population. We have in Canada and the United States, and it's exacerbated in the United States. By the way, this drawing is not to scale, in case anybody's wondering. This would represent a whole lot of people in this country with a lot of money. Inherited a lot of money, made a lot of money. You got a whole lot of people with a lot of money. You got the traditional middle class that we all aspired to when we were kids, getting squeezed. It's not quite this dramatic. I make it this dramatic just to prove my point. And then you've got a ton of people with very little money and a lot of debt. That is the economic reality of Canada and the United States today. That is also why, as an economist, and I'm part of a group of economists that look at this stuff all the time, when you hear people saying the American consumer will not pull us out of this recession, that's why they can't. There's no way to get enough money into this group without having to borrow it to pull the economy out of recession. That's why it's got to be pulled from elsewhere. And when you get negative news on this group, what they tend to do is trade down. So they go from restaurants to supermarkets, from high-end supermarkets to lower-end supermarkets. Doesn't matter where you are in the pyramid. If you've got a lot of money, you worry. If you're in the middle group, you're worried. At the bottom, you're really worried. That's economic reality. Now, you got to connect the seller, all those retail stores, and the consumer, all those consumers I was talking about. Pretty amazing group. Now, remember this. Different stores mean different things to different people. So, let's go back to urban fare. Nobody shops in urban fare for paper products. You shop somewhere else for paper products, maybe Costco or somewhere like that. You shop for high-end food at urban fare. Your head says, I go to this store for X. I don't go to this store for Y. You've already decided that. You as a Canadian consumer have done it. My job as a retailer is to find out what store you're going to go for what and convince you convince you you're going to come to my store for X. That's what I'm going to do. So, consumer values, which I'm going to explain in just a minute, and their economic capability, which I just showed you, determine the retail strategies. Consumer values and their economic capability stimulate the retail strategies. That's what happens. Pretty simple. Let me talk about consumer values. First value, I hate talking about this, is price. I used to avoid it, say price isn't a big deal, but price is a big deal. Price became a big deal about 4 years ago. Before that, Canadians' price wasn't a whole lot. If I did a survey today of Canadians, 86% will tell me they factor price in every food purchase decision. They didn't do that prior to 2008. Prior to 2008, that number was down in the 50s. So why is price such an issue? Well, first of all, you got a recession. You got this economic downturn. Everybody's concerned about it. Recession's over, says the economist. 58% of consumers says no, it isn't. 58% of consumers are struggling. They say no, we're still in a recession. Get worried about that. These are commodity prices. Those are real up until the end of March. Take a look. Take a look. They're all going up. I'm not sure what the price of corn announcement was earlier today. But I'll tell you, if the U.S. corn commodity price or commodity estimate doesn't get high, the corn estimate is going to go up by dramatically as well. So you get worldwide commodities going up. Why are they going up? Well, pretty simple. You got this thing called Brazil, India, and China, and they're growing like crazy, and they got huge middle classes, and they decide to eat protein, and they decide to eat a whole lot of products that are based on the same materials that we've grown up. Now, 10 years ago, as easy as 10 years ago, you would have crop failure in Russia and you'd yawn. Say, oh, we failed in Russia, farmers get a little bit more money. You get a crop failure in Russia today, like you did last year, and you get a bump in the world price of commodities to the point where people put up their borders to protect the products staying inside the country. It affects the entire world, and it's not going to go away because the whole world, all of these developed countries now, are consumed with consuming these commodities. So we, as Canadians, are faced with the fact that we'll be paying more for food in the future because our input costs, based on rising commodity prices, will go up. Now, people say, well, that will mitigate some point. It will only mitigate, folks. It will only mitigate when we solve the farming issues around the world. Up until that point in time, believe me, we're going to go up and down with the various crop failures in the world. That'll be access to commodities. This corn thing, that hopefully is announced today in the U.S., is one of the scariest things that I've seen, again, as an economist, because if you look at corn, in many ways it's the basis for almost everything we do. Almost everything we consume has corn in it. And an dramatic increase in the price of corn could dramatically change the economic fortunes of North America. What we need is a good report today. I hope it is a good report. And we need that crop to come in well. And that will help things a lot. So the consumer is looking at that. The media doesn't stand it, so they write sensational stories about it. I used to appear at BNN about once every 6 months and talk about this stuff. I'm on every second week right now. And just talking about commodity price increase. Think consumers are worried about that? You bet. We got debt, crippling debt, huge crippling debt, huge mortgages. The mortgage rates aren't going to go up, folks. They're not going to go up in the near future. But we do have concerns with huge debt. And then we're adding on that this whole issue of increased gasoline prices. We've got some good news there. We've got lots of oil around the world. We just can't get it to the various production refineries. So you'll see oil, I think, settle out around $100 next couple of years, but a little bit of fluctuation in between. Okay, so I've done all this on purpose, right? So why have I done all this? Everybody's sitting there, and you're all thinking about your own situation, and it's got you. Right? It's not as gloomy as I tell you. Nowhere near as gloomy. It gets you worried. And you hear all this stuff. It's gloom. It gets you down. So you have to go out and buy food, which is the one thing we all have to buy, at least once a week or every day we have to consume. Let's stretch our dollar. No, I couldn't stretch the loony. Couldn't do it. So I had to use the American buck. Not worth much anyway. And then you take that, and how do they do it? They go into places where you can get generic goods, lower price product. And so the common products that you have, the canned goods, all that kind of stuff, you pay the rock bottom price. fresh products and the other product. And that thing, you'll pay a higher price. Basically, you're trying to stretch the dollar. This type of thing plays into the hands of hard and soft discount. So if you think about it, you're looking at strategies. The two groups that gain out of recession or perceived recession, or the depths of depression I just put you into, two groups that gain are soft discount and hard discount. The soft discount is Walmart. You say, well, why is Walmart growing so quickly? That's why, right now. That's why they're growing so quickly. And that's why you're going to see a little bit more hard discount in the next little while. Let's look at another value. This is health. I love this one. We all of a sudden realized, it didn't take us long, since the Second World War, that what goes into our body affects its health. Wow. What a revelation. All of a sudden, we've decided that food and health are linkage. It's really important to us. We decided to look at that linkage and realize that our health depends on what we consume. And you could say to me, well, what group that you show is that of principal concern? All of them. Interesting, isn't it? All of them. Right across the board. Doesn't matter. If you're old, what you eat affects your health or your young. Very important. Well, let's look at this. These are headlines, you scary. In fact, we have major packaged goods manufacturers in this country reformulating products just because they are worried about being regulated by government down the road because of the obesity crisis. Now, you may not see it in this room because we're all slim and in great shape. But there's some parts of Canada that are very depressing. Some parts of the United States are very depressing. There are certain characteristics around it. And we started out, Canada started out with a national paper on obesity consultation. I'm not sure you guys aren't part of the consultation. That's going to be huge. That's going to be huge. And if the industry doesn't get its act together on what it's selling, not just to kids, but across the board, they're going to get regulated. I laugh. You know, I was sitting in an audience back in the 90s in the United States, and Jeffrey Bible, who was then the chairman of Philip Morris Company, stood up there and he said, you know, we're being regulated out of business, these tobacco companies. He said, you people in the food business, I was sitting there beside somebody that Carla knows really well, Irene, you people in the food business, you watch, because things like sugar are going to be regulated within your lifetime. We all laughed. We all laughed. Don't more. We as an industry, including you, have to look at this. Let's look at diabetes. You heard that I'm on the hospital, been on there for a long time. It's an epidemic, folks. Diabetes is an epidemic. Totally preventable. Totally preventable by diet. Totally. And then this outbreak of allergies. People are allergic to almost everything. And we used to think, oh, that's not a big deal, it's dust or something like that. We have real serious allergies and scary stuff in this country. We've all been touched by it in some way. I live with a child who grew up as an anaphylactic. I understand. I know what it's like to freak out when you walk into a school classroom and you see somebody open a peanut butter sandwich when they've been asked not to bring it. I know what it's like. It's big and it's scary. And you haven't been touched it. It's big. All these people have to be looked after in our food system to some degree. Leave this phrase with you. Thy food is thy medicine. Thy food is thy medicine. As we go forward, we will increasingly look to our food as the statement of our good health. Food is thy medicine. And if you look at stores today, and we heard a lot of this stuff this morning, that's why it's so intimidating. People involved with natural foods, innovation of natural foods, and you hear about organic foods. And you have like choices that have nutritionists on staff. You have diabetes, you get diagnosed with diabetes, you walk into choices markets and you sit down and they say, oh, we'll show you how to eat. And they'll walk you around the store. And they'll show you what to eat and where to eat it and all the rest of it, and it's marked for you later on. How good is that? Nutritionist on staff. And then you go to store by store, again, the ones that are in the know, and you'll see allergy-sensitive zones everywhere. This is where we have to go. And who is the forefront of this? Why do you think just the specialty guys? Absolutely not. You know who started it? Steve Bird, Safeway States. And he changed the stores in Western Canada, lifestyle, all their sales went up by 50%. 15%, because people all of a sudden related that with better health. What they were selling was better health. They didn't mind charging for it either. It was pretty profitable out of that. Safeway, huge on it. Believe it or not, Wawa's huge on it. I'm not sure the RCSS is, but Wawa's is. Choice markets. Tell you, you got a health issue? That's where I go. Whole Foods understands it. That's why Shoppers is in food. That's why they're in food. Food and health. Don't forget it. Confidence. Huge value. Everybody says buy local. It's not buy local, folks. It's knowing who's behind the food. And local makes it so. I know where the field is. I know who's producing that stuff. I know who's behind the food. I know it hasn't come a long way. I'm totally confident in the food. This is Sunripe. Is Sunripe's product from Kelowna any better than anybody else's apple juice? I don't know. But I do know this. They get a better share than anybody else. People love it because of where it comes from, or perceived to come from, because some of the concentrate might come elsewhere. Local product. You can't beat it. 100-mile diet. We've got all kinds of cookbooks. You guys are the leaders. BC was the leader. There are people that just dote on the whole concept of local, but they want to know who's behind the food. And so when you get to Whole Foods, or you go into Choices, Choices aren't the only way, I hate to keep doting on them, but they're remarkable. You go in there, you can read about who's producing the food and how they produce it. You know who's behind the food. You have confidence in who's behind the food. That's what people want to know. That's what the local movement is. When people say to me, it's going to be a fad. It'll never be a fad. It'll never be a fad. You want to know where your food comes from. We just woken up. How many people would be totally confident if all their produce came from Germany this week? Right? Wow. Don't think that didn't impact. Food safety is a big thing. We think our local food is safe. We have to work hard to make sure it is. So local food is very big. Everybody likes it to some degree. I like some of these people because they've championed it before anybody else. Stong's Markets has started more entrepreneurs in food in this country than anybody else I know. Save on Foods, absolutely remarkable quality foods on the island. I got Choices up again just fast. I'd love to tell you a story about songs, but I think I'll be up here too long. Can I tell a story about songs?
We'll stay in time.
Huh?
We'll stay in time.
Okay. What's happening? Oh, okay. Everybody with me so far?
Yeah.
So Leslie shows arranged crisp crackers. Everybody like them?
Yeah.
Right? $7 a box. You figure what the margin is on that? Pretty good, huh? So Leslie Stowe was the daughter of David Stowe, who was in Scott Taylor way back when. Lived in Chauncey, was a caterer, had a great cracker. Runs into Corey Bonilla, who owns Stong's. Says to Corey, gee, I'd like to put this out in the market. Corey says, okay, let's do that. Let's put it in a box. Put it in a box, figured out the box, and Corey helped figure it out. Put it out there, tried some different price points. And away it went. It's now a national brand. Not bad. It's just one of the things she's done. That's what these people are willing to do. Pretty interesting. Next value, relief of pressure. Time pressure, two things. Two things people are after. Time pressure, and again, it crosses all boundaries. It's the young couple that's pressed, and it's the old guys that are pressed for time. I mean, some of us are on the back nine. You know, we're a little pressed for time. And we want to make this all work. And we like to experiment. Not with this kind of stuff, but we do like to experiment with our food. So all this stuff, these prepared foods that have come out, remarkable prepared foods. You talk about what you're going to do with prepared foods. Nothing prepared foods. That's what people want. People want that stuff. They want to try it. They're used to it. They don't know how the hell to make it. They couldn't replicate it. But they want to consume it. So we've got this explosion of prepared foods in the supermarket. You've got frozen foods in the supermarket. You've got ways to feed people on the way home. It's interesting and experimental. It's exactly what they want. And there's all kinds of people that are in that particular market. And nobody does it better than the specialty stores in the downtown areas. This is one thing that I love, and it's very dear to my heart, and that's the issue of sustainability. As an economist, I've been studying this whole system for more years than I care to count. Every time we come up to a recession 1972, 1981, 1990, all the recessions, right? Leading up to the recession, we're all in a great place. And typically in North America, we're in a great economic place. We all feel good. We start to worry about the environment. We have time to worry about things other than feeding ourselves. We start worrying about the environment. When we get in the middle of the recession, we forget it. And we walk away from it. It doesn't come back until we're feeling good about it again. Guess what? That didn't happen this time. People are still concerned about the environment. People are still concerned about sustainability. So now you're seeing sustainable products. You're seeing people, seafood sustainable products. You're seeing crude products just come out with a forestation sustainable product. You're seeing people stewardship around bags, all kinds of things around food. Now, why is the food company so prolific in this regard? Because we're the point of contact every day. People see it and they ask about it every day. Sustainability hasn't gone away. It's a wonderful thing. They say, are consumers willing to pay a little bit more for the product? Well, that varies, not all the time. But most people that have a lot of money, yes they are. And they're asking for the product and they're asking questions, what's sustainability? And those young people, they're researching it on the internet or whatever else they use, because I don't understand half of it anymore. And they're coming in and telling you. So you better be on your game when it comes to sustainability. Pretty remarkable people. And again, Loblaw, largest company, or somebody else that isn't funny. The other one is Walmart. So far ahead of anybody else isn't funny. The great thing about Walmart is they tell you, and they're telling the whole industry, you must have a sustainability plan for all the packaged goods that you will purchase by X date. And it must include this proportion of water you use, this proportion of energy used, etc. Walmart lays that down. You think you're going to do it? You betcha. You want to sell through Walmart? Started in the United States, moving into Canada, they're going to do it. They'll drag the rest of the industry, kicking and screaming. I'll tell you something else. I got invited to a conference next week. Who buy by Walmart? Who else they invite? Everybody else in the industry. So you go in there, and they will tell you it's not proprietary. They will tell you what you need to know about what they're doing sustainability, because they think it's the right thing. We all need to be part of it. Remarkable, non-competitive, very important. And some of the things we talked about this morning with some of the people around, won some of the awards, my hat's off to you. Good for you for being ahead of it. You can't get away from the issue of authenticity. You can't lie anymore. There was a day when you could lie and cheat and steal and all the rest of it. You can't. You're held to account. A couple of things happen. One is people ask questions. So your staff better know the answers. The second thing is, if they don't know the answers, your customer will look it up on the internet and you'll be able to. These are things that play into the whole hand of how the retail food industry works and how you have to educate your staff. So if you're in a hard discount situation, you put it for no expectation that you would have any answers on anything related to food. But if you're in the traditional supermarket industry, your staff better be able to answer the questions of the consumer in every department. So, why are they all selling food? Well, there they are again. Why are they all selling food? You can all now go through every one of those companies, just on the basis of the information that I just provided you. Each one of those companies. And you can tell me what their point of difference is in the market. And then you can tell me whether or not your product fits in there. And how you ought to sell that product in there. You can look at each one of them and do that. Some of them don't fit at all. One of the things that upsets me most about dealing with processors and frankly primary producers from time to time is they never look at that. They have a commodity, they want to sell the commodity no matter what. They have this, and want to sell it to everybody exactly the same. If you target the market and you help them improve their point of differentiation, if you've got a product open, look at all those different people and what they're looking for in the market. They're no different than you and I are. Very exciting time, also extremely dangerous time. A very exciting time for all of us. So I'm happy to answer any questions. That's kind of my perspective today. Thank you.
I'm not going to try to summarize because I think there are lots of questions from the public, lots of good brain cells.
This is your opportunity. Any questions from the floor? There's one there.
See, we're starting to hear about other firms increase to try to extend and stretch their dollars like cross-border shopping. Is there any studies showing an increase of people buying groceries across? Especially in Vancouver, where you can get...
It's the biggest, Vancouver, by the way, is where the industry complains most about that, and that's because you have Rebecca cheese produced in the same factory at two different prices. There's no actual studies on it. It is a factor. It was big in the early 90s. It's not as big right now because of the status of the Canadian dollar, obviously. There's two issues that go on here. It's not just a price point, and the price point is against supply managed goods by and large, which I will not take a position on here. It's not just that. The second thing is because we're such a concentrated industry here, and it didn't look like that, you have to realize that Loblaw, Sobeys, and Metro, between the three of them, control about 70% of the retail food market in the country, leaving the balance to kind of fight out. And when you look at that, they restrict the amount of the diversity of product that comes into the country. So if you're not, so for example, if you're a processor and you're selling something out of the United States or offshore, if you're not listed in either Loblaws or Sobeys, then you basically can't come into the country. It's just not economically viable. So so then the consumer looks at it and says, well, there's so much more variety in the US. And there is. There's more variety, although our price points are better. There's more variety in the United States, and that's why there's more variety.
There's a question from Vikram.
What are your thought processes on independent grocers who were ex-chefs or who have been in the business before, like Mark McEwen, for example, or Linda Meinhardt, or Leslie Stowes? Do you think there's a trend to move from named stores to individual stores?
Yeah.
Or chefs?
Yeah. Yeah, it has to be done right. We didn't think McEwen would make it. He's still there. The chefs that have been successful are the ones that have, see, being a chef and running a food store is kind of like being a golfer and running a club. You need to understand what retail is. Retail is very different than food service. And the same thing, anybody in food service, anybody in retail has to learn food service. But there have been chefs who have been successful across the country, and then equally there are chefs that have trouble. The best marriage we've seen is somebody that, if you're going to get into it, you should have somebody else retail with you to help you along. That's my opinion.
So there was a question.
Yes.
John, great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
I think the food manufacturers are feeling the pinch. Also, we're feeling the same. Gas is going up, commodity price is going up. What do you say to manufacturers like myself when you have, a retailer like Walmart or Loblaw that says, "Sorry, we don't take any price increase." Walmart has shown that if you, we've seen a picture walking that this brand is no longer available because they give us a price increase. So, the food manufacturers feels squeezed the same way, and retailers are saying, "Too bad, it's your turn."
Yeah, that's a tragedy in Canada right now, and there's no easy solution to it. Frankly, right now, the large retailers are a bit of a cock of the walk, if you will, and they're very much dictating two things: price and quality of product that they'll have in there. Some of it's been absolutely brutal. Some companies have taken a very aggressive stand against them. They have to be multinational, and then we'll walk away from some of those pricing. What we found lately is that there is a sensitivity at big companies to price increases and knowledge of the commodity thing. And for example, Bill McEwen last November, he's the CEO of Sobeys, stood up at a conference line like this. He said we will take no price increases next year. Well, of course they take price increases. What he meant was we're not going to be the first one to do it. And Loblaw said, and then Loblaw started to accept them, and Walmart started to accept them as well. But I find with Walmart, I feel like I'm promoting Walmart, I'm not. What I find with Walmart is that they're more, you can talk to them about it. I find Loblaws be absolutely totally unreasonable. The other thing that's become unreasonable in this country, and everybody will accept this if you're in the processing business, is the trade spend you have to put on to get your product listed and maintained in those stores. It's now the highest in the world. It's beyond any point of reasonableness whatsoever. And at some point, there's going to be a breaking point there somewhere. Eve, I haven't answered your question, but I'll tell you what. I'd be the last person to tell you, with your success in entrepreneurship in this country, what to do. I couldn't give you any advice, because you're one of the most remarkable people I've ever met.
But I'm talking as a group, because it's not only, there's different size manufacturing, and the small manufacturer can't give a price increase, has to shrink his margin.
Shrink his margin, or say, okay, I'm not going to, and I know this is tough, I'm not going to play in those stores. I'm going to play in stores where I get margin, because I'm going to help those people with the point of differentiation. That's our point. That's where big companies want into. Big time. Like if you can help Safe with their lifestyle, because they've got higher price points than those guys. If you could, there's just some remarkable opportunities out there right now. I think. There's a question from Bob and Greta.
Have you noticed any changes in how the industry is managing their waste?
Yeah,
If you guys at the back of the room hear the questions.
wants to know if the industry has changed how it's managing its waste. And the answer is, yeah, and it goes back to that sustainability thing, and we're so visible, it isn't even funny. And the attention is incredible. I don't want to go back to choices again, but I'm going to do it one more time. Here's what you got to do. Everybody in this room has got to do this. The best education you have ever had. You need to go to Choices White Rock. Not anyone. Go to Choices White Rock and get them to take you through their whole sustainability thing. And you will find out that there is zero waste coming out of that store. Zero waste comes out of the White Rock Choices store. None. Everything finds a way to be recycled. It's the most remarkable thing you've ever seen. And we have people, I was just telling Lindsay a few minutes ago, we had people here just a few weeks ago from across the country, and they just spent half a day just in that store saying, okay, how can we do that? And surprisingly, the investment is not that high. You can do it. Everybody's looking at it. Again, Walmart and Loblaws, love them or hate them, are leaders in this area, and they are working very hard to minimize any type of environmental footprint. It is remarkable what they've done.
Here's Eva-san at the back of the room.
Yes, I'm from the rice table. I have a question. The interest rate is very low. So Walmart and Loblaws, they ask for higher discount on payment with a longer payment term. So what's your comment on it and how to deal with that?
I wouldn't install them in the first place if I didn't have to. Yeah, they're always going to stretch their terms as far as they can. And again, as I was saying to you, you're caught in a situation where Walmart is growing very quickly. I think they're up to 7% on the overall industry, and like 13% of packaged goods in Canada right now. And that's pretty remarkable growth in just a few short years. They are the growth. They're on a growth curve. And then the second one is Loblaws, which is, a $31 billion company. It's just absolutely massive. And they're going to dictate what they can. And even unfortunately, even the big companies like the Crafts and the Proctors of the world have a terrible time negotiating with either one of them. The only thing that I get back consistently is that in Walmart deals the deal, and Loblaws deals the deal today. That's the two differences I get. But I can't help it. Every frustration that I've heard from Eve and from you, I hear across the country. I had a meeting with the Agriculture Committee of the House of Commons a year ago behind closed doors, and we had some processors in there, and that was the whole subject of it, how do you deal with that kind of situation. If you regulate, what are you regulating? You need a government with a will to regulate. It's a very, very difficult situation, extremely difficult. And that's the problem with allowing a couple of companies to become so highly concentrated in a country. Can't happen in the United States because obviously patent acts happen here. You think it's bad here? You sell in Australia? Australia, two companies, Woolies and Coles, this excruciatingly, they're 10 times worse. Walmart wouldn't even go there. They're not even there. So bad. I'm sure I'm not giving you any comfort here. The comfort I'm going to give you is figure out the strategies, go with somebody you can play with. These guys want to play. They all want a point of difference. Help them with their point of difference. Take less volume, higher margin. You might be surprised.
We've got time for one more question, perhaps if there's one from the floor. If not, I have a question. Who's going to win on Friday?
Pardon?
The Canucks and the Bruins?
Oh,
Who's going to win on Friday?
Oh, it's okay, so very good. So,
thank you, John.
So, my kid, my 21-year-old, played with on the same team as Steven Stamkos and Cody Hudson. And so we were pulling for Tampa Bay to win that series. So we see Cody play Steven. Every time they come to Toronto, they call Chris and say, come on down, so he down, sees the games and goes out. It's been a wonderful experience for those for those young men. What a great ride for them. Hey, look, Clark's going to win the series. You guys, come on. You're going to win the series. Thank you very much. Enjoy being with you.
Now we're turning our attention to the panel, the expert panel. And our panel moderator today is Mary O'Callaghan from KPMG. Mary is the leader of KPMG's People and Change Advisory Services practice in Western Canada. She's a certified management consultant and has been a member of KPMG's advisory practice for 20 years. Mary specializes in governance and business performance improvement, particularly change management, organizational development, and strategy. With over 20 years of business advisory experience for a variety of private